Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be doing our April native plant garden tour. This is the first video in a series of videos that I'll have over the whole growing season, just to show you how these native plants are growing month by month by month. I've got lots to share, so if you're interested in a particular plant, you can jump down to the description section and go to any of the chapters that might be of interest to you. Spring is such an exciting time of year for me. And April especially, things are just starting to peek through the garden. There's so many little surprises, like gifts, that I'm looking forward to. What are you looking forward to in your gardens? What new native plants do you have peeking through as well? I'm very excited to get right to the videos, so let me get to them now. Thank you so much for watching. Here we have our heart leaf foam flower, and it is looking pretty similar to last year. We've got these kind of rusty colored leaves, a little bit of green poking through, maybe some new leaves in here popping out right in there. There's a new one. Oh, it's so cute. And then maybe a little bit of runners that have kind of stretched out, but really this plant has not spread too much in the garden. So really hoping that I can keep it happy and maybe let it reach out and spread a little bit more this year. Over here we have a couple things going on. We've got our Solomon seal. This is what these branches are that are kind of poking through the leaves here. We left those on from last season. So after, the temperatures rise, I'll tug them out and then I'll lay them down on the ground. But you can see that we've got these little guys poking through. There's one there. There's a big guy over here. And then a couple. There's another one back here. So this is all the Solomon seal that's poking through, ready to come and reach for the sun. So very excited about that. We have a couple volunteer trout lilies. How cool. I'm so excited about this. I'm not sure if it's the native variety because it hasn't bloomed yet, but I found one leaf that volunteered here last year, and now I've got two. So pretty psyched about that. And then over here we have some Canada anemone. So this is from last year. We won't try to disturb too much right now. We've got some here, a little bit. Whoop, where are you? Over here. And this is all new growth from last year's perennial Canada anemone. Now this is going to get pretty big. This will get about like a foot or so tall. It's not just a ground cover that goes along the ground, but it is more tall. So I moved it at the back of this front garden here that's part shade. So it's pretty happy, and I'm hoping to get some of those beautiful white blooms again this year as well. Also in our shade garden, we have a Trillium. It may be a red Trillium or perhaps a purple Trillium because it's right over here and it's super tiny and cute. And hopefully over time we'll get a bloom or two out of it. Usually it takes a little bit of time for Trilliums to bloom, so I'm not going to cross my fingers on this one yet because it's pretty new to my garden. So this is our front part shade garden. It looks pretty sunny right now, but that's because the Norway maple that's above us has no leaves quite yet. So let me try to do a little bit of a fast forward on all of the plants we have here because everything is native. We've got a whole bunch of the Woodland Strawberry over here. That has been green pretty much throughout the whole season. It's looking fabulous right now. It's stretching its legs throughout the whole garden. This was about, I don't know, maybe 3 plants last season, and now look at it. So it's looking awesome. We've got some Zigzag Goldenrod over here, a couple of them. This is the Zigzag Goldenrod, a little bit back here as well, and over here. And then what else do we have? We have some large leaf aster. So I believe that is this guy. And then also a little bit down here, we had 3 of these. This was from the Reap Green Solutions Bloom in the Box shade box. And then this was a transplant, a Chokecherry transplant that honestly looks so sad, but look at, we've got tons of new growth. So I think this one is going to be quite fine after a pretty angry season last year. So after I let this go for a bit, I'll probably clip off some of these other branches that look that there will be no growth and just let it focus on the ones that are producing. So very, very exciting. We've got a bush honeysuckle right in the middle. So I'd like this to get nice and full in the center of this garden. It's looking pretty tiny right now, but we have some growth. So it is looking good. I'm happy that it didn't get nibbled away over the winter. And over here, we've got some Bottlebrush Grass, and that is looking awesome. That looked great throughout the season. I left the seeds on, so who knows what will happen this year. Over here, we have our Christmas fern. It's looking a little flat right now, but that is okay. It will plump right up, I'm sure. So this over here is the Dutchman's breeches, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I planted some of the native bleeding hearts, so I'm hoping that that's what these little guys might be. So we'll see once the season comes along a little bit more and see how these things develop. Over here we have one of our 4 serviceberry plants, and this is the one that is doing the best. And we've got a whole bunch of growth happening, which is awesome. Didn't get nibbled up too much by bunnies, and fingers crossed it'll get enough water and sun in this kind of sunnier garden that I have. Here we have our New England Aster. This plant looked so fantastic last fall with bright, beautiful purple flowers all over it. I left the stalks on. I'll still leave them on for a while yet. When I remove them, I'll put them in a little pile and make sure that I don't just discard them into the compost. But you can see that there's lots of new growth. So I'm just going to let this do its thing. This is in the sunny part of our yard. So this is kind of a sunny, dry spot where this will get lots of beautiful blooms, but much, much later in the season. Over here in the corner of our very sunny spot, we've got our butterfly weed. So this plant tends to pop up a lot later in the season. So I'm not worried about it at all. I'm going to leave these stalks here for a while yet. And then again, I'm going to put these stalks into a pollinator pile so that if there are any critters in there, they can emerge as they see fit. So over here, it's kind of hard to see, but we have a ton of black raspberries. This is in a sunnier part in our yard, and we've got a ton of growth. I think I have about 8 plants or so, and there's lots of leaves forming. There's some shorter ones like this, but there's a whole bunch of longer ones. You can see over here and a whole bunch of branches. So hopefully we'll get some black raspberries to taste this year, which I'm pretty excited about. Over here, we have our little blue stem. We have a little bit over here as well. These plants kind of flopped a little bit last year, like literally flopped over. So I might have to think about how to keep them upright a little bit more. Maybe as things kind of grow and get more full, they'll do it on their own, fingers crossed. But not a lot of growth happening here. This is all what was left from last season. So we'll let it do its thing, and then hopefully we'll see some new little blue stems soon. Here we have our Eastern Prickly Pear Cactus in our boulevard garden. And it looks a little wrinkly. It looks a little kind of pathetic, but it is coming along. You can see that we have lots of new little growth here, lots of life left in this beautiful plant. It has pretty much doubled over time. I've talked about moving it from this rock because the space where it has to grow is kind of small. So maybe this year will be the year that I finally do that. Either way, I'm very excited to have this plant in the garden because it gets lots of attention and it also keeps the dogs away. So here in our boulevard garden, we've got nodding onions. So I planted kind of 3 little patches here. 1, and then 2, and then 3. And these were seedlings that I grew from seed last year. So hopefully this year we'll get some flowers. So here are our golden Alexanders, and they're all coming along. Last year, this plant looked a little bit spindly. I had some transplants that were kind of holding on, but I also planted some seedlings. So it does look like we have a bit more than last year. So hopefully this will fill in nicely in our kind of part shade garden over here. Here in our boulevard garden, we have our wild blue lupin. I've got a ton of it growing over here through the leaves, which is awesome. And then I had a whole bunch of new plants that have propagated from this one. So fingers crossed, it hasn't hybridized with some of the other lupins in the neighborhood, because we've got some more that have just appeared. So very, very excited that it's spreading. Fingers crossed we see those big, beautiful kind of lavender blue gorgeous blooms that I look forward to very much later on this year. Here we have our Prairie Smoke, and this is pretty much the star of the show right now. Look, we're going to get these awesome little blooms anytime now. They are so gorgeous and unique. And then the wispy seed heads that come later are what everybody is excited about as well when it comes to Prairie Smoke. And that's where they get their name from, because they have those wispy, gorgeous seed heads. So lots to look forward to with this plant. So here's our Lanceleaf Coreopsis. There's just a little bit of leaf starting to peek through. And really, this plant was such a showstopper last year. We had blooms all the way from like June until September, maybe even October. So if you don't have Lanceleaf Coreopsis in the garden yet, definitely get it. The bright yellow sunshine flowers are 100% worth investing in. This wee little twig is our redbud tree or shrub. It is a beautiful plant when in full bloom, and I have patience to let it get there. But look, we do have a little bit of growth. There is some growth here. So hoping that we'll get some of those pretty little pink flowers, even on this small little redbud here. Over here in the corner, we've got our swamp milkweed. I've left these stalks on from last year, and there's pretty much no signs of life yet on this guy. Over here to the right of our swamp milkweed, this is our pale purple coneflower. This thing got huge. This was about 4 feet tall or so. It was a little droopy in my garden, so I put this little support in here. But this year, I think I'm probably going to put a tomato cage in just to help it stand up straight. And then down here, over here, these little kind of purpley bits are the new growth coming. So we'll leave all these stalks on for a while, and then we'll add them to our pollinator patch. All of this wee little growth is our Scarlet Beebalm that's all coming along. My little labels here didn't last too long that were wooden, but these guys seem to be working really, really well. We've got a ton of growth. This plant has not done so well in my garden. I want it to look like nice and lush, but it kind of looks a little spindly. So hopefully this year will be the year that it just really stands out in the garden because the flowers are just stunning. Right of our Scarlet Beebalm, we've got our obedient plant. Now this one is one of my favorite plants in the garden. It stands up tall, about 4 to 5 feet tall, with lots of beautiful purple blooms at the top of these stalks. And I left all these stalks from last year, so I'll clean this up in a little while, but we've got lots of new growth happening here. This plant does grow by rhizome, so it will spread underground, and then it will grow by seed. So if you don't want it to be too aggressive, you can deadhead it, and that's what I do. And then I share the seeds with all sorts of other people so they can have obedient plant too. Over here in this little strange protection apparatus we have is our paper birch tree. So this is just a wee thing. It's probably about 3 years old now, maybe 4, and we've got lots of growth coming. I was a little afraid that this tree was going to be done after last season because it lost its leaves really early in the fall, but I have hope. There looks like there's going to be some growth, so fingers crossed this guy holds on. Here we have our morning star sedge. This is a very cool plant that has the coolest seed heads. We've got some foliage here that's brown from last year with a little bit of green coming back at the bottom, and then a bunch of new foliage as well. So fingers crossed we'll get some of those very cool seed heads to share with you later in the season. Here we have our columbine. It is coming along so nicely. I have another patch in a shadier part of my yard, and I can hardly see it amongst the leaves. So it really shows how you can have totally different little microclimates, even in your own property. Here's our spotted bee balm. This was just tiny itty bitty seedlings last year, so I didn't get any flowers over here. So I'm really hoping that I do get some flowers because they are so cool. I had only one that had those kind of tiered, beautiful blooms that I'm hoping that these little guys will have this year for me as well. So at the back here is our American bellflower. So this is supposed to get quite tall, maybe even like 5-6 feet tall. So this was just little, just like this last year. So hopefully this will be a nice year for it to kind of grow and really show us what it's got. And then over here, whoop, this tiny little twig, this is our spice bush. I definitely see that it got nibbled over the winter. It really wasn't much higher though. It was probably about maybe like double in size. So it's not a significant chop, but I do see some growth. So there is some little buds here coming along. So fingers crossed it can still maybe manage throughout that little nibbling and grow much bigger this year. Here we have a whole bunch of violet volunteers. Now, apparently identifying these is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to go in and take a couple little close-ups here, and hopefully I'll be able to identify whether or not these are actually the invasive or hopefully the native variety, because they have appeared all over my yard. So fingers crossed I've got the native kind, and I will be updating about that soon. This is my great blue lobelia, and it is looking really happy down here. I planted this from seed last year, and I had some beautiful blooms. Not all native plants will bloom in the first year, so if you're looking for something that'll bloom right away, this is definitely a good option. So this is where we did a little bit of fall sowing. I definitely wanted to highlight that if you're going to label things with permanent marker, not a good choice. No idea what's in that pot right now. We've got some smooth rose coming to life right now. We've got some greenery popping up. Not sure where this guy's going to grow because apparently it is a very aggressive plant. So I'm going to leave it in this pot for now until I can figure out the right spot in the garden. And the rest of it is just dirt right now. So we'll wait for the seeds to come on up and then we'll give you guys some highlights. Here we have another one of our seed sowing stations. So I planted a whole bunch of seeds last fall. I definitely had a ton of squirrel action. They were digging in all these pots. They were leaving me gifts. I have all sorts of stuff in here. If you want to avoid that, which I probably should, you can put like mesh over these, anything where the snow and the elements can get through, but not the critters. I've got all sorts of goodies that they left for me. So just keep that in mind if you're going to do fall sowing and leaving it out like this, that you definitely will get some critters in there, but these are going to be fine. These are my baby oak trees. They are the cutest little things. They are red oaks. I planted them from acorns just a few weeks ago. And look, we've already got a whole bunch of leaves. They are going to be massive one day, but right now they're just wee babies. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video interesting and helpful. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. We'll have many more videos along the way just like this, and lots of other adventures and tips as well. Thank you so much again for watching, and happy gardening.